This burger weighs exactly 1 pound. If I ate it right now, would I suddenly weigh 1 pound heavier? One of the greatest scientific minds on all of the internet and Ludwig have racked their brains around this very question. And so, as the food theorist, I see no person better suited to tackle this delicious debate, one bite at a time. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Food Theory, the show that's always ready for some internet beef. Except I'm not talking about your usual YouTuber drama. I'm talking about real, 100% genuine Angus beef. You see, the other day I was minding my business, scrolling through YouTube, when I stumbled upon this video put out by Ludwig from Video Games.
Me and Cutie got into a big argument yesterday. I said that if you eat a 1 pound steak, you gain 1 pound. Not permanently, but like immediately after eating the steak. And she said, no, you would not go up a pound. Some of it would be lost. And I'm like, what does that mean?
What it means is we have ourselves a good old-fashioned food debate. Naturally, as a streamer, Ludwig tried hashing out this debate on stream with his chat. But it's Twitch chat, so it went about as well as you'd imagine.
Brother, you're the dumbest in the chat. Congratulations. I see people making arguments, and I think they're putting their best foot forward. You got two left feet on you, man.
But there was hope. This is the internet after all. Whenever you have a slightly silly science question, there's one person you can call on to set the record straight. Me! But Ludwig didn't have my number, so he called YouTube royalty and certified TikTok science geek Hank Green. I mean, he has a whole show where people just ask him questions. What could go wrong?
Hello.
Hank, I'm live. I have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
I got into an argument with my girlfriend last night.
Okay.
Because I did a fast food challenge where I had to eat a lot of fast food and I had gained weight. And she said it doesn't work like that. I posed a hypothetical. I said, if I eat a 1 pound burger, right after eating the burger, I'm 1 pound heavier.
And in typical Hank Green fashion, his answer was both scientific and, dare I say, digestible. Blech. Hank even managed to sneak in a quick existential question in there to really mess with Ludwig's head.
I always maintain that the entire digestive system is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside. And you don't get to count that until it gets absorbed by the body.
What the f? The digestive system is a tube that is inside the body that lives outside the body. What did he say?
And here's where the beef really starts cooking. You see, a few weeks after Ludwig put out his video, Hank put out a video of his own titled Ludwig Completely Misunderstood Me, where he tried to clarify his stance on the 1 pound burger debate and add more scientific depth to his answer. Classic Hank stuff. But ironically, in this video entitled Ludwig Completely Misunderstood Me, it was Hank who ended up misunderstanding Ludwig. And Hank even said some stuff in his video that wasn't true. Gasp! I know! Honestly, this debate between Hank and Ludwig sparked so many interesting questions, not only about food, but anatomy and physiology, embryonic development, and even philosophical thinkers like, what is me? I just had to dive in. So join me in my kitchen, loyal theorists. Have a seat. Stay a while. I've been munching down on science like it was a 1 pound burger, and now I'm stepping on the scale with the likes of Hank Green to answer 3 big food questions. And let's just say, by the end of today's episode, you'll never look at food or your body the same way ever again. Kicking off our food investigation, I see no better place to start than the question that sparked this entire debate in the first place. If I eat a 1 pound burger, do I actually weigh 1 pound more? Now, for this debate, it doesn't really matter if we're talking about a burger, a steak, or just a tub of lard. All we need to figure out is if we eat something, do we immediately gain its weight as our own? Let's hear both sides of the argument between Ludwig and QT Cinderella one more time.
I said that if you eat a 1 pound steak, you gain 1 pound. Not permanently, but like immediately after eating the steak. And she said, no, you would not go up a pound. Some of it would be lost. And I'd be like, lost where? And she'd be like, in the air.
Now, at first glance, this question seems kind of silly. If I stand on a scale and weigh 185 pounds and I pick up a 1 pound burger, the scale is obviously gonna go up by 1 pound. And therefore, it shouldn't matter whether I then funnel that burger into my mouth or down my gullet. The scale scale should still stay the same. But there are a few tidbits here and there that could actually lend support to QT's side of the argument, one of which Hank brings up in his call with Ludwig.
And if I were to weigh myself on a scale, it'd be 1 more pound because we have to keep the pound.
Yeah, I mean, you're always losing a little tiny bit of mass every time you take a breath.
Now, you might be thinking, breath? That measly little is nothing. Surely that doesn't make any sort of difference when it comes to my weight. Well, don't be so sure. Hank, take it away.
And as for air, when we think about losing weight, this is where the weight goes, and that's wild. So of course we lose weight by losing water, by peeing and sweating and stuff, and we lose weight by pooping. But actually, like if you're talking about losing the fat in your body, which is mostly what we mean when we say losing weight, what's happening is those tissues are being broken down and used for energy, and where that mass actually goes is very strange and surprising. It is exhaled in your breath.
See, what he's saying here is that when we burn fat, the actual weight that's leaving our body doesn't exit through the butt, but mostly out of our mouths. Gross. Pero like, how does this happen? Hank actually has a pretty decent explanation in his video, but since I'm in the presence of one of the goats, I want to try my hand at flexing my own science communicator muscles. As humans, there are 3 different types of molecules we consume that we can later burn to get energy: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Now, our bodies really don't like breaking down protein for energy, so we'll set that aside. But whenever we do need that little burst of energy, our bodies will break down either the carbs from this morning's bowl of cereal or the fat from last night's Chipotle run. That carbohydrate or fat will react with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy, which we go on to use to run that marathon or get up off the couch to look for the remote. But once that energy is made, that heavy CO2 and water has to go somewhere. The water leaves mostly via our sweat and pee, but the CO2 is exhaled through the lungs, and with it, all that mass. Bada bing, bada boom, you've lost weight. And not an insignificant amount either. For every 10 pounds of fat you burn, around 84% of that is lost via CO2 that you breathe out. The rest is water. In fact, every time you breathe out, you release around 33 milligrams of CO2. That may not sound like a lot, but over the course of a day, that's around 1.25 pounds of CO2 you're releasing back into the air. And that's why, as Ludwig reminded us,
if you weigh yourself in the morning, you are lighter. You are at your lightest in the morning.
While we sleep, we don't add more weight onto our body in the form of food, but we do breathe a lot. And so, over the course of the night, you breathe out a bunch of CO2 and you get lighter. And that circles us back nicely to our burger battle between Lud and QT. Because while a 1-pound burger should increase your mass by 1 pound after you eat it, the amount of weight you'll lose in the form of CO2 over the few seconds or few minutes it would take to actually eat the burger is small, but not zero. Although, to be fair, none of that weight loss would actually come from the burger itself, just from the weight you're constantly losing throughout the day. So depending on how you look at it, you could easily argue that both Lud and QT are right in their own ways. Although Hank might have an alternative explanation.
And she said, no. Some of it is lost and in the air.
Okay, I don't know where some of it is lost and in the air might have come from. Oh my gosh, this is Hank from the future, and I figured it out. What she was talking about, I think, is that when you cook a 1-pound burger, you do not end up with 1 pound of burger.
No, I definitely think that's not what she meant. I mean, sure, some of that yummy, delicious fat and juice does cook out of your burger, around 1/3 to 1/4 pound according to the USDA, but that's not really part of this little thought experiment. No, see, in this thought experiment, the idea is that you eat a burger that has the final weight of 1 pound. QT is saying that our 1-pound burger, toppings and all, will lose some mass in the air, which, if we're getting really technical, might be true. I mean, at like the atomic level, some of those delicious burger molecules will manage to float off that yummy treat and into our nose. But good luck finding an affordable scale that measures to like 25 decimal places. And so yes, if I snapped my fingers and transported a 1-pound burger to my tum-tum, I'd gain a pound. But in the real world, technically there are tiny, almost imperceptible amounts of mass that end up floating away from both me and my meal, so it's not perfect. Therefore, QT and Lud were both right and wrong. Bravo, Santi, I thought to myself. You've solved another online food debate. Time to go remove some of this mass, if you catch my drift. That was until Hank up and went and said this.
The real question is whether that burger is part of you if it's just inside of your stomach, or if the stomach is the outside of you.
Wait,
Like
what?
I always maintain that the entire digestive system is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside. And you don't get to count that until it gets absorbed by the body.
Oh, I Hank, why do you do this to me? Dumbest title card we've had to put in a video so far, hands down. Hank sure has thrown us a bit of a curveball, hasn't he? It's fine, I'm fine. So Hank claims that our digestive system, from mouth to anus, is just a tube of outside that runs through the inside of me, thus making us some sort of oddly shaped flesh donut. Have fun with that visual.
It's just a tube of outside that runs through the inside.
So you're saying it's the equivalent of holding the burger in my hand. If I were to weigh myself with a burger in my hand, I'd be a pound heavier.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count because it's in the process of being digested. And until it's digested, it's not part of my body.
I'm gonna keep it real. The whole outside, inside thing feels like one of those oversimplified to the point of being wrong things. But this is Hank Green we're talking about, Mr. Science Man. Let's see how he explains himself in the video.
There are basically two versions of this. So say that there's a pot and you put water in the pot. The water is in the pot. It's not like sitting on top of the pot, it's in the pot. And so if there's a burger inside of me, then it's inside of me. But also, there is a tunnel through a mountain, and if you are in the tunnel, you're kind of in the mountain, but you're kind of in the tunnel. And that's how I imagine the body. And so it makes total sense to me that you could imagine this either way.
All right, it's more semantics, not so much hard science. Oh, my bad, Hank. I interrupted.
And it doesn't matter which way you imagine it, but I will say that the cells of our skin are called epithelial cells, and the entire digestive tract is lined with epithelial cells. Embryonically, the same layer when you're developing in a womb, the same layer of like the germline cells that becomes your skin also becomes the tube.
I think Hank Green might be wrong here. And I don't mean like, OMG, he's so wrong with a fraud, let's ratio his ass. I mean like, actually kind of wrong that only someone like, well, Hank Green could appreciate. So Hank, if you're watching, love you, but also debunking time. Let's start from the top. It is true that cells that make up our skin and line the inside of our digestive tract are all called epithelial cells. Epithelial cells are also one of the 4 major types of body tissues, along with connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. But just because our skin and stomach cells are all called epithelial cells, it doesn't mean they originate from the same place. And to explain that, I have to return to the one place I thought I'd never go back to, my pre-med days. Lightning strikes, ka-chow! Specifically, we're diving into embryology. That's the study of embryos, which, I guess I need to start at the beginning. You see, when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much, that's when the sperm and the egg fuse together to form one new cell. That one cell divides into 2, and so on until you get a big ball of cells that don't know whether they're gonna become skin cells, liver cells, or brain cells. Around 3 weeks after conception, that big ball of cells goes through a process known as gastrulation. During gastrulation, the cells start to organize themselves into different layers called germ layers. Those are the ones that Hank is talking about when he says,
the same layer of like the germline cells that becomes your skin also becomes the tube.
The only problem is, the same layer of germline cells that becomes your skin does not also become the tube. Again, I don't want to bury you in the minutia of embryology. Nobody needs that. But our ball of cells starts to reorganize itself into 3 distinct layers: the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. Each of these layers goes on to form different parts of the body. For example, the ectoderm will go on to form things like your tooth enamel or your nervous system, or most importantly to us, the outer layer of your skin. Meanwhile, the endoderm goes on to form several organs, and you guessed it, the lining of your digestive tract. See where I'm going with this? Your skin and your stomach lining are derived from completely different layers. Therefore, your digestive tract is not part of your outsides, and we can rest easy knowing that my 1 pound is firmly on my inside. Well, look, it's not really that simple, because of course it's not. Let's allow Hank to finish his point.
The very first thing that an embryo does, it forms a little donut, forms a little hole, and that hole is the digestive system.
During gastrulation, the process where we make the 3 germ layers, that little ball of cells starts to pinch in on itself and form what will become the digestive system. You know, the tube. But when you actually watch the cells pinch in on themselves, it sure looks like the inside started as outside, so who really cares? I mean, the cells sure don't care whether we call them ectoderm or inside or tum-tum. So if you want to say that your digestive system is actually your outsides, have at it, Hoss. You're wrong, but you do you. Wow, that was a lot of heavy science all at once. I think we need to pull back a bit and go back to our roots. You know, answering really dumb food questions like, Somehow, I proved myself wrong about the title card in the same episode, because that is the dumbest one we've done. But yeah, sprinkled between the discussions about burger weights and germ layers, Hank brought up a whole new debate that feels much more up food theory's alley.
If I eat 1% of my body weight in nachos, so I'm 220, if I eat 2.2 pounds of nachos, which is not hard, I could easily pull that off. Am I 1% nacho?
I mean, this sounds like the same logic your mom used on you when you were a kid. You better stop eating chicken nuggets or else you're gonna turn into one. If we continue breaking this nacho into smaller and smaller pieces, say down to the molecular level, eventually we'd all stop calling it a nacho. And in reality, that's what our digestive system actually does every single day. It breaks down delicious foods like nachos into smaller and smaller bits, small enough that we can absorb them into the actual insides of our body and use it for things like nutrients and stuff. And this is where Hank and I are once again in lockstep, mainly because there's a big difference between something being a part of you by mass and something just being a part of you. When you eat something like these nachos, for a hot second, like we've established so far, it is a part of you by mass, meaning you plus nachos equals whatever weight. But for you to be made up of nachos, we're talking about biological incorporation. And when you get down to that small of a level, it's all molecules. You're not part nacho, you're part protein, carbs, fats, amino acids, yada yada yada. Well, another mystery solved. Finally, I can get back to watching some Ludwig from video games.
Oh, God.
Hank, baby, I'm live.
I thought you might be.
If I have soup and I leave the soup out overnight, why can't I simply bring that soup to a boil and eat it like it's good?
Nope. I am done with Ludwig's questions. That's gonna have to be a story for another time. But hey, that's just a theory. Food theory. Buen provecho. And if you want to hear about some actual YouTuber food drama, click the video on screen to find out why creator-made food products are always destined to fail. And as always, I'll see you next week.